Howdy folks, hope you've all had a great weekend and welcome back to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And I wanted to kick things off this week by telling you a funny little story, an experience that I had just before the weekend actually, that left me with a great big, am I allowed to swear? We passed the first 15 seconds of the video? We are, okay, good. Oh, it doesn't matter, I'm not monetizing this anyway. An experience that left me with a great big shit-eating grin on my face. So, since it happened, I've been dying to tell you about it. So, anyway, the story. So, I'm playing World of Warcraft. Okay, yeah, I know, big surprise. I'm leveling another character. It's a gnome rogue who goes by the name of Twinkerton. I have something of a naming convention with my gnomes. I've got Tinky Pie the Mage, I've got Tinky Winkle the Warlock, I've got Twinkie Pie the Warrior, and now I've got Twinkerton the Rogue. So anyway, Twinkerton is, he's questing in, it's not really important, it was the Sholazar Basin zone, so he wasn't that far away from being maximum level. And I've taken the mining and engineering professions on him. Because you mine the metals and stuff with mining that you use to turn into gadgets and devices with engineering. So while I'm questing, I'm also keeping an eye open for mineral nodes so I can, swoop over to them and mine them. And I have a flying mount. And I mention this not to show off, but because it's actually quite important to the story. When you're leveling your first character up in World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King Classic, you don't get cold weather flying to allow you to actually fly in the Northrend area until I think level 77, 78. But once you've got it on one character, you can buy the manual that allows a character to fly in Northrend and mail it to any one of your other characters. So since, this isn't my first rodeo, I've been flying throughout the Wrath of the Lich King Classic expansion on my rogue, so the fact that he can fly is going to be important here. So I'm doing these quests, leveling up, and I'm keeping an eye open for any mineral nodes so I can grab them in order to help train up my engineering. And I spot some Saronite ore, and I go, I'll have that. And I swoop down to it, but there's a dirty, great big proto-drake dragon thing next to it. I think I'm going to kill that first. So I'm a rogue, so I dismount, I stealth up, I sneak up to the dragon. The second I engage it into combat, this horde player, a tauren warrior, comes riding in and starts mining the Saronite. So he basically takes the stuff that I was clearing the bad guys around in order to get to. But it's fine. I was stealthed. You're not supposed to be able to see me if I'm stealthed. But I mean, and even if he'd deliberately done it, he'd waited until I was taking care of the bad guy next to the mining node and then rushed in and did it. I mean, it's a dick move, but it's a, on the level of dick moves, it rates fairly minor. I mean, it happens all the time. There's no point in getting upset about it. Yes, it's a dick move, but, life's too short. Move on. But he just had to take it that one step further, didn't he? He had to exercise the nuclear option. So not only did he ninja the mining node, while I'm busy killing off this dragon, he spits on me, and then he flips the finger at me. And then he jumps onto his horse, or whatever his mount was. I think it was a riding wolf, actually. Horde, they're weird. And rides off. Rides off. Right? Doesn't have a flying mount. I do. This guy fucked with the wrong gnome. Right? I would have been fine if he just, come in, ninjaed the mining node and then ran off. Whatever. Like I said, life's too short. But he had to make it personal. And he severely miscalculated just exactly how far I'm prepared to go to piss off somebody who upsets me. Well, it's not even that he upset me. I mean, I was at worst mildly annoyed. It's like, oh great, here comes somebody ninjaing the mining node when I'm taking care of the mobs that are guarding it. Fantastic. But yeah, like I said, it happens all the time. And there are a lot of mining nodes in the Sholazar Basin, so big deal. It's just that he had to go and make it personal, didn't he? I mean, he didn't have to, but he chose to. So I chose to piss him off. Now, The server that I play on is not it's not a PvP server. There's no player versus player combat is consensual, right? You have to flag yourself for PvP in order for somebody to attack you. So it's not like I could just follow him around, stealth up, and backstab the shit out of him every time he stopped to mine something. But I mean, you know, where's the fun in that? It's kind of boring and predictable. I can do far worse. So remember, I can fly. He can't. He only has a ground mount, and the ground mount gives you a 100% movement speed boost. But the flying mount, the epic flying mount that I had, gives you a 280% speed boost. So catching up to him was not going to be a problem. And of course, I'm flying, so I'm way above him, and he's not looking up, right? He's keeping his eye on the ground where all the threats are and looking out for the mining nodes on his minimap. So tracking him was no problem whatsoever. And because I had a much faster mount than his, I could fly ahead of him, checking for the next mining node on my minimap as well, and get there ahead of him. And he's not looking up because he's down on ground level and there are nasty things there that you have to avoid. So he's keeping his eye on the terrain, he's not looking up, he doesn't aware that I'm ahead of him, I've spotted the next mining node, and I've dismounted, and I'm a rogue. So I can stealth up, I can go invisible, and wait for him there. And oh, here he comes. Oh, he's seen the mining node, he's turned, he's heading straight for it. Wait for it, wait for it, he's almost there, he's dismounted, and I unstealth and start mining it right in front of him. And then laugh at him. And then I do it again. And again. And again. And then the fifth time, where is he? Oh, I know what he's done. So I mount up and I fly back the way I came, and sure enough, he's turned around and he's going the other way. So I fly ahead of him, and I find the next mining node, and I land next to it, and I stealth up, and I wait, and yep, here he comes. And I unstealth, and I mine it in front of him, and I laugh at him. And I do it again, and again. Eventually he rage quit. I did this for 20 minutes. He didn't get a single mining node. I got all of them, and hey, I needed the minerals as well, so it's not like I was just wasting my time for the sake of it. But after a solid 20 minutes of seeing this fucking gnome unstealthing and taking everything that he tried to mine right in front of him while laughing at him all along, he'd had enough and he logged off. And oh boy, it felt good. And it all could have been avoided. You know, he chose to make it personal. He could have just ninja'd the original mining node, and, you know, like I said, it is a dick move, but on the levels of dickery, it's kind of minor. It happens all the time. There's no point in getting wound up about it. But no, he had to exercise the nuclear option. He had to go and make it personal. And he severely underestimated just how far I'm prepared to go to piss you off if you're going to be a dick. He fucked with the wrong gnome. And that's how I spent my Friday night. Yeah, kind of sad, I know. But it was fun. On the downside, day or two later, Twinkerton hit level 80, which is good. You know, that's the level cap. And then started gearing up in raids. And I managed to get into a Naxxramas raid, which is like the first tier of raid content in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. It's yesterday's news now. There's a new raid open with better gear, but in order to get into that raid, you kind of need the gear from the first raid. So I was kind of a little bit under-geared. I mean, I'd spent some money getting some stuff from the auction house to improve my character. And I got into a 10-man Naxxramas raid, and I was the only leather wearer. So any leather armor, nobody else was going to be rolling on. And a lot of the other people in the raid really didn't need any of the gear from there. They were just, maybe there was one trinket or something that they wanted. So, you know, loot bonanza for me. Any leather drops, they were basically going to be mine. No leather dropped. Well, that's not strictly true. One piece of leather did drop. It was a piece of shoulder armour that was a massive upgrade for me. And I'm the only leather user in the raid group. So fantastic. So I roll for it. And then the Retribution Paladin, right? Paladins who wear plate armour, not leather. The Retribution Paladin outrolls me for it. I think, yeah, okay, fine. Due to the itemization in World of Warcraft, it's not unusual to see plate DPS rolling on leather and mail armor, because the itemization for the plate armor is sometimes not so great. But then I took a closer look at this guy. He's wearing plate shoulder armor from the next tier of content. Rather than bore you with all the details explaining exactly why, these leather shoulders were absolutely not better than what he had. You just need to accept that they were absolutely not better than what he had. But what they were a BOE, or bind on equip, which means that it's not locked to you as soon as you loot it. You can sell it on the auction house. But when these shoulders dropped, the raid leader said, okay, roll for your main spec, which basically means if you're going to use them, you can roll on them. And I was going to use them because they were a massive upgrade for me. They were not a massive upgrade for the Paladin. He was not going to use them, but he rolled on them anyway because he wanted to sell them on the auction house. So in the raid leader's defense, he said, hang on a minute, Paladin, are you actually going to use these? And the Paladin said nothing. I mean, we all knew why he'd rolled on them. He'd rolled on them so he could sell them. But the Paladin said nothing. And after 30 seconds of refusing to answer the raid leader just awarded him the loot because he did win the roll. But hang on a second, that does seem like a bit of a dick move. I mean, clearly the Paladin wasn't going to use them, and you were. So why was he rolling on them in the first place? And why did the raid leader let him get away with it? Well, in that raid leader's defense, our server has its own Discord. And on that Discord, there is a blacklist. Now, that blacklist was started with the best of intentions. Anytime somebody abuses the loot rules or does anything, dickish, you can have them added to the server blacklist, which is a good thing because if people are going to steal loot, if they're going to start a raid, set themselves up as the master looter so they control who, what loot gets awarded to whoever, and then they start stealing the loot, you can put them on the server blacklist, and then anytime you join a raid and anybody on that blacklist is in the raid group, there's a mod that will announce what that person did and why they've been blacklisted, which gives that raid leader the option to kick them out of the raid. So, you can be a dick on our server, but if you get onto that blacklist, you will never get into another raid group again. So it was set up with the best of intentions. So people are getting added to that blacklist when they haven't actually done anything wrong. When they've started a raid, for example, and in the raid description, they've quite clearly listed what the loot rules are, but people haven't bothered reading them. And then when, say, for example, a certain item is hard reserved by whoever set the raid up, in other words, if that item drops, you don't get to bid on it, you don't get to roll on it, it's been reserved by the raid leader. And people are going, wait, I wanted to roll on that. Well, you didn't read the bloody rules, did you, when you joined the raid? And they go, oh, you've ninja'd the loot. And they stick them on the blacklist. And then that poor bugger, even though they didn't do anything wrong, they can never get into a raid again. There's a guild on our server called Goofy, and the entire guild is on the blacklist for, well, a whole bunch of reasons that basically amount to being dicks. And I was aware that this guild was blacklisted, but only sort of peripherally aware of it. I wasn't, going through the game thinking, oh, I have to avoid anybody from this guild. I just, wow, an entire guild got themselves blacklisted. That's funny. And I ended up in a raid and didn't realise until halfway through that it was this guild. And they were fine. There was nothing wrong with them. They were well organised. They were disciplined. They had a great sense of humour, like a very sort of rough sense of humour. And I think that's what got them blacklisted, because their sense of humour was merciless. But I thought they were really funny. I was in the military for 22 years. I've been insulted by professionals. And I'm pretty sure it was their absolutely brutal sense of humour that got them blacklisted. Because it turns out that the Discord server where the blacklist lives is run by a big bunch of happy, clappy, hippie, trippy, humorless, lentil-eating hippies with absolutely no sense of humour whatsoever. Like I said, you know, these things like this blacklist, they get put in for the best of reasons, but they can so easily be abused. So you end up with, you know, guilds that just have a really good sense of humour getting the entire guild blacklisted because somebody can't take a joke. You end up with, you know, people trying to be good raid leaders, absolutely terrified of getting onto the blacklist and allowing people to abuse the loot system out of fear of getting themselves on the blacklist. You know what it is? It's cancel culture. In a game. You can't get away from it anywhere. Oh shit, I just had a thought. Hang on, I'll be right back. I need to check something. Alright, I'm back. I just checked the blacklist to see if I was on it. Because of what I did to that tauren warrior who pissed me off over the mining nodes. I'm not on the blacklist. Although, you know, it's Horde versus Alliance. It's the two factions in World of Warcraft. And you're supposed to be... You're kind of supposed to be dicks to each other. I mean, well, there's no rule that says you have to be. But if a Horde character is being a dick to an Alliance character, that's not a blacklist offence. That's just, you know, that's World of Warcraft. It's called Warcraft, not Nicecraft. Horde and Alliance aren't supposed to be friendly to each other. I mean, they often are. Again, the server that I play on is like 95% Alliance and only 5% Horde. And it can be an utter bloody nightmare if you're a Horde player trying to get a group quest done, because there just aren't enough Horde to group up with. So... You know, if I see a lone Horde character standing in an area where a group quest is getting done, and I know there is no way they're doing it by themselves, and I'm on one of my Alliance characters, I'll often help them, because it must really, really, really suck to be Horde on that server. But you don't have to be dicks to each other, but there's no rule against it, and it's often encouraged. So there's no way I was getting on the... Well, there's no way I should have gotten onto the blacklist for pissing off that tauren warrior over the mining nodes. But, well, the blacklist can be abused. Anybody can put you on it, and there doesn't really seem to be any verification or oversight. It's just he said, she said, which is why so many people are on it unjustly. So I wouldn't have been surprised if I had been on it. Because, I mean, you know, I realise the golden rule around here is don't be a dick. And I was being a dick to that tauren warrior, but he started it. It's not much of a justification, but I'll take it. Also, it was really funny. Oh no, I'm going straight to hell in the comments for this one, aren't I? Ah, whatever. I did the crime, I'll do the time, it's fine. It's only fair. And that's the difference, you see. I'm prepared to live with the consequences. I don't cry about it and say, oh, it wasn't my fault. He started it, even though he did start it. But yeah, if you want to give me shit in the comments for being a dick to that guy, then by all means, I do deserve it. I mean, I'm sure most of you won't, but I'm equally sure that some of you will. And that's fine. Like I said, I do deserve it. Anyway, we're going to close off this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles with a bit of gaming news. Except there isn't any. It's been a really quiet week as far as PC gaming is concerned. I mean, there's plenty of news out there. It's just none of it's about games that I am interested in or care about. And while I'm not really interested in and don't really care about Counter-Strike Global Offensive either, there is some news. That's not really news. There's a story and a video clip, which I'm linking down in the video description, that happened this week in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, where one player single-handedly wiped out the entire enemy team with a single shot from his sniper rifle. I have no idea what the odds are of that ever happening. Although apparently it's not the first time that it has happened, but when the video clip was uploaded to Reddit, and I do encourage you to go and check out the video clip because it's amazing, as is the reaction from his team when it happens. But it's currently got 20,000 upvotes on Reddit, and people are saying that, and not many, a few people are saying that they've seen that happen maybe once in the years they've been playing the game. So go and check that out. And if after watching that clip you don't have a smile on your face, well, you're probably dead from the neck up. And that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've all had a great weekend. I hope you're all going to have a great week. And as always, take care. And I'll catch you next time.